I'm not a huge buzzword person, but I tend to use them by accident. Like I don't like them. So that's one of the things I've been like, okay, don't use too many buzzwords. Gotta get them all out.
Yeah, this is an agile free zone here.
Yes, welcome to Tara's episode of Without a Roadmap, where the buzzwords are made up and the story points don't matter.
Yes, I like it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Without a Roadmap. This is the show for product people who don't know all the answers. We plan to tell the stories of product people who get the job done but are still figuring it out. My name is Yonas.
And my name is Cam. Yonas and I are both PMs here at Parlor. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Tara. So why don't you go ahead and give yourself a quick introduction.
Hey everyone, my name is Tara and I'm a product manager at Enlitic, a healthcare tech startup headquartered in San Francisco.
Cool. So super excited to have you on. We've been trying to get you on the podcast for quite a while now. I originally met you through this LinkedIn outreach, trying to get some feedback around Parlor, and then you recently transitioned into a new role in a new company. So why don't you tell us about kind of how you got from this your whole career trajectory, pretty much your whole journey?
Oh, okay. Start from the beginning. Okay, cool. No,
the entire thing.
Yeah. So I started my career on the client service team at a company headquartered in Newton, Massachusetts, Patronic Systems, kind of, I guess you could call it like restaurant tech. So really a marketing platform for restaurants and convenience stores, main product being like loyalty programs. So my first title was technology consultant. And so I was working directly with the clients. And I really, really enjoyed that. And then after about a year and a half, I kind of, I like to say I kind of like fell face first into product management. Definitely at the time, I like didn't really know what it meant, but I was really looking for, a role where I like to be able to see everything that's going on. Kind of get the best of both worlds and everything. So I was like, okay, what's going to get me that? So
the funny thing is my first interview was for Patronics for it to be a technology consultant.
Oh, really?
Coming out of college.
Yeah.
So you're almost coworkers.
Almost. Well, I mean, well, we also went to BU together too.
Yeah.
Right?
So
but we knew each other there.
Wow.
Small world.
Yeah. Super small world.
So my first role in product was working with the data science engineering team. And that was kind of, I was working very much more directly with that engineering team. And then I did that for a couple of years and then kind of moved into platform product management where I was working really across all of the engineering teams at Patronics. And kind of from like a different angle. So really doing a lot of the same stuff, but just a little bit more broad. So,
what was your education background for you to go into like data science? Was that something that you studied in school or your engineering major?
Yeah. So undergrad, I studied electrical and biomedical engineering.
Oh, wow.
And it all makes sense eventually. So I really was looking for roles where I could work very close to the technology. I think I kind of consider myself an engineer at heart. Like that's where I'm comfortable. And where I really don't have a hard time, working with the engineering team and getting on the technical side. And, I have to push myself a little harder on kind of the other aspects of product management. That's kind of how that was kind of my path into product management.
Cool. And then talk to us about the transition over to from Patronics after being a platform product manager, and now you're at your new role at Enlitic.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, biomedical engineering, I've always really wanted to get into healthcare tech. And it just kind of felt like the right time for me to, take that step in my career. I got a few years of experience in product management under my belt, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this and take what I've learned and apply that elsewhere. So that's kind of how I found in Enlitic, and it, once I found it, it was like a whirlwind. And I think I remember you reaching out and being like, oh, okay, like, let's stay in touch. Do you want to be on the podcast? And then I think I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, and then I went dark for a couple of weeks because just everything's happening so fast. So,
I figured. Yeah, the first 30 days at a new job is just crazy.
Oh yeah. Yep. Drinking from the fire hose for sure.
So it's interesting. You said the process of going from one role at a company into product managing a product manager role seems pretty common. Like, a lot of people find their first role within that first company, because few people are coming right out of college with a PM or even associate PM role. So I'm curious, what that process was like, and if it seemed like there was a natural progression from your client services role into that first PM role. And it's was there a concerted effort on your part to make sure that there was that trajectory, or you said it fell on your lap? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I guess for me, the transit, it totally made sense. And I think, I kind of fell face first into product management and got into it before I really knew what it meant. But having the experience as someone on the client services team, working directly with the clients, with the end users, being able to leverage all of that was really helpful, I think, for me in getting into all the product management work. And but yeah, I really just a role had opened up on the product team at Paytronix, and someone who I consider a friend and a mentor, who ended up being my manager at Paytronix for a while. Shout out Joel, I miss you. And
shout out Joel.
He kind of encouraged me. He's like, hey, I think you should go for this. And I was like, I don't know. And he, he was one of those people that, I think everybody's got some form of imposter syndrome, and you have those people that'll look at you and be like, no, you can do this. So
we all
that's
need
how
that,
I got
Joel.
into it.
Yeah. That's exciting. Well, I'm glad that worked out, and it seems like it kind of worked well and kind of fit into what you were trying to do. So yeah, excited to hear a little bit more about that transition from that first role as a PM, where you're like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing, figuring it out as you go, into the second role where you feel a little bit more empowered. You got a little bit of experience in your tool belt, but still then there comes the stress of coming in as an experienced hire and trying to kind of make yourself known and kind of earn your keep at a new company.
Yeah. Yep. That's a lot of, I think it was really during, the first 30 days at Enlitic, I was like, okay, it was almost like this epiphany, I feel like, for me. I'm like, oh, this is my first time being an experienced hire, at another company. And so I try to choose my words very carefully. This is my second company, but it's not my second job. And, I do have a lot of experience, from my previous role at Paytronix. And I was so lucky to have that experience on the product team there, because I worked with every single department. I worked on projects with the finance team. I worked on projects with the data insights team and the analysts. All with the marketing team. So that really, the whole wearing many hats as a product manager was definitely my experience there. So, trying to figure out how to leverage all of that, in this new company where I don't necessarily know as much about the product or the end users. Those are the gaps I've got to fill in, but I do know, I don't know how to be a product manager.
We're all still figuring it out. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're all still learning as we go. But yeah, super interesting. I feel like just because I mean, obviously with Parler, we support product teams, and we talked to a whole bunch of different product people, and like every product organization is run differently. Like they operate differently. They even sit within, they even sit differently in the organization. Like some people have their own product org. Some people report up to marketing. Like it just always depends. So like,
Yeah.
Have you noticed any differences so far in like the way Paytronics ran their product org and the way Enlitic does now, and like anything you've tried to
Yeah. At Paytronics, the product team was technically like sat under marketing, and it was kind of like marketing, but also, you know, with the one of the founders of the company. At my new company, product is so I guess my title is technically technical product manager, and I'm sitting on the R&D team. So the person I report to is also the person that all of the engineers and like the data scientists report to. So there are definitely some differences there. It makes it very easy for me to like go into my natural, like, I'm just going to spend all my time with the engineering team, and you know, which is nice, and definitely like plays into kind of how I like to I think run projects, and you know, as far as just like really building up a rapport with the engineers and the people who are actually like building the thing that you're selling. But it does, you know, I do know that I'm going to have to, it's just going to make me have to push myself harder to do all the other side of product management. Yeah. I'm curious about what, you know, at your company,
I think we're probably pretty unique. I'll let Yonas answer this one since he has more experience with the founders, who are essentially a product team themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like Cam said, I previously worked with the 4 founders at Firecracker, our last company. And so after they were acquired, these 4 like management team members went off to start Parler, and they're there, and they're like themselves are a product team. But you know, so it's, you know, 2 engineers, a designer, and then Keith, who knows what to like coin like as his title or his skill set. It's pretty like vast. So it's interesting because we only recently reorganized like how we kind of who's actually leading the product team. Before there was a, you know, CEO, and then there's a chief design officer, and they were both kind of equally responsible for the direction of the product. But more recently, we gave the chief design officer the title head of product. So you might think that means that product is under design, but that's not the case. We just don't have a formal, you know, like a formalized process. So like in terms of like who to report to, because Keith, the CEO, is still directly like, you know, influencing the product roadmap. He's the person who, you know, is basically creating all of the product strategy. The head of product, Jonah, is basically the person who manages all the work. So I don't know if we could say that it's like under marketing or under design. It's kind of like, you know, run by a couple people, and we all know who to go to for questions, and who we're going to take, you know, strategy and kind of high level business goals from. So, you know, being a small team, we're able to be flexible and kind of just, you know, understand like, you know, what works well. And, you know, if we grow, we're definitely going to have to formalize it a little bit more. But, you know, that's the beauty of like a team of, you know, 10 people.
Yeah, we're pretty like, I would say it's amongst the founders, like whoever's leading product, it's like a group decision. Like obviously Keith is very opinionated and has his directions, but like he's also very good at allowing other people to voice their opinions and kind of steer and change his own opinion based on like what's said in conversations. So like when we're talking about a brand new feature, like everybody has an equal voice for the most part.
Yeah.
Like obviously Yonas and I don't have the same power as the founders, but like we're able to voice our opinions and like change some features and stuff like that. So like everybody is super open to everybody's ideas. Like our thing is that criticism is constructive and like dissent is positive. So like don't ever hold your voice when you have an opinion, because it could actually help improve whatever we're trying to do.
Yeah. That was that's kind of one of my like personal goals, especially like I told myself going into this is new role and everything is just like, okay, we're going to throw imposter syndrome out the window this year. Like, which is a hard thing to do. But I think especially working with, I've got a new leadership team, and I'm, one of the things that I've tried really hard to do is, I really like to work with people as people. And I definitely, enjoy the in-person interactions and stuff, which is something that, makes all the Zoom tough and everything. I'm always turning my video on to be like, hi, I'm here, in meetings and whatnot. But, really going to the leadership team that you're working with and figuring out like, okay, like really, almost like thinking about it in a product management sense, but like, okay, you're my customer. How do I cater to that? And, how do you like to receive information and all of that? And especially, I think one of the things that I'm working on is when I'm working with leadership being like, okay, are you, being able to figure out, like, are you telling me this as like, subject matter expert and you're giving me information to then go make a decision, or are you telling me this as like, this is a decision and do it this way? You know what I mean? So
yeah. Kind of trying to like
That's
reverse
interesting
engineer like their vision.
Yeah, exactly. But I think sometimes being direct about it is like, okay, like, is that the direction you're giving me, or which way about it? So to make it easier for everybody to stay aligned and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of an aside, but I thought it was funny when you said like taking a product manager's mindset or approach to like that part of your work. But like, I think there's so many things that you can like apply the product management like kind of mindset to, like even in life. I've recently have been noticing that just like, making decisions around the house and in the garden, like prioritization, thinking through like, how to lay things out and do it in the right way. And I feel like there's so many ways you can apply those practices in life.
Wireframing where to put plants so it all looks nice when they're blossom.
Oh yeah, I had a rough sketch. I had a very rough sketch of what it was going to look like.
And then once you get in there, it's not looking the way you want it to. So you got to do some QA, and
it never does.
Iterate,
yeah.
Exactly.
There was a lot of iteration. Had to transplant some things, and I think we're gonna have to check back in 90 days at the feature fit index or see how things are going. Yeah.
So Sarah, let's maybe get into like your first 30 days. I feel like that's like a big topic. It's kind of like a buzz kind of topic you see on like LinkedIn articles, other blog posts. So talk to me about your 30 days. Like, what were some of the challenges? What were some of the goals? And like, what did you try to get out of like your first 30 days, especially since you started your first 30 days fully remote, given the current climate.
Yeah, during the middle of a global pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really just trying to think and push myself to think like, okay, what would I do if I was in the office? And it's kind of like there's like these weird pros and cons where like, it's almost like, I'm drinking from the fire hose, and I'm really trying to make sure I'm not missing anything. If I was in the office, there's like conversations and things that you would hear happening. But sometimes I think there's pros to this where I can kind of like control how much information I'm getting and how much I want to like give myself. So I'm trying to take advantage of kind of that side of it right now. But I really like to work with people as people. And so one of the first things I did was, okay, like, when it became pretty clear to me, like who like the main, like the engineering leads on the projects I was going to be working on are, and the projects I am working on are, figuring out who those main people are, just scheduling like, hey, do you mind if we like chat for 15 or 30 minutes? Just like, let's not talk about work. Let's talk about like people things. Because to me, it's helpful. I like to know and work with people as people. So, and I've definitely gotten good feedback. Like no one said no so far. So I think that's a good indicator that other people like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, we have someone starting, I think next week, right, Jonas? Pretty sure.
Yeah, yep. Co-op.
Tuesday? Yep,
Joe.
Tuesday. Yeah. So that's something that I should definitely keep in mind. So thanks for the wise words of advice, just to schedule some time to get to know him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like I think it was actually my first week, and there's two other product managers, and we're all, you know, um, this is a startup, so we've all started, most people are new technically, like the veterans
Yeah.
have been here for like a year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And realizing that as well, is like, okay, like we're all, you're not that much further ahead of me on the
Yeah.
but as far as like working with the other PMs, I think the first thing I was like, do you guys want to do like a virtual happy hour this week? So and they're awesome. I'm really excited about working with both of them.
How many other PMs are currently there? Is it just yourself and your manager, whoever you report to, or is there other product teams?
No, it's myself and two other product managers, and then we all report to the VP of R&D.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the difference between, in your experience, a technical product manager and a product manager. Like, do you feel like your responsibilities are like inherently different now that you're technical?
No, I think no, I don't, and I think probably the point of that was just to make sure, since to pull people who are going to be willing to get down into the technical weeds, and I totally am, but I don't think the responsibilities are different at all. Like, I still have a responsibility that any other product manager would have to, work with all the other departments, and at the end of the day, keep things moving forward.
Yep.
So that's my short answer to that question. Nope.
It's good to know.
So you're saying I can apply to technical PM positions then?
Yeah. Totally.
Let's do it. Just kidding.
Right.
Just kidding. To the founders that are listening. Just kidding. But I think another thing, like in the 30 days that we had another guest, Evelyn, come on about, this is probably a month ago, couple months ago maybe. But she transitioned internally into a new PM role. We kind of talked like through her first 30 days as a new PM at her company. And like one thing that helped her and also helped Yonas and myself when we first started at Parler was like trying to ship something within your first 30 days at starting your new role or new company as a PM. So was that something you try to get done in your first 30 days, or like was the projects that you were on or put on immediately kind of not cater to it being done so quickly?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like the goal is to like necessarily ship something, since it is so early. I think I guess that's kind of a tangent I was just thinking about. Like, I don't have the relationships with the customers that the end users of this new company that I had like spent years building up at Patronics, and had because I'd worked with some of them directly, and so I as a product manager, I was used to be able to have a direct line to a client and be like, oh hey, I knew them, and say, hey, can we chat for a second? Do you have 30 minutes this week or something like that? I just want to get your feedback on something. And I that's something that I am working on building up. But as far as yeah, I was definitely like put on a huge project to start. And so not necessarily like shipping something, but making sure like getting it off the ground in an organized manner, like putting the product management kind of layer around the project. And of course, like there are really smart people that have already been thinking about it for a long time and doing a lot of work around it. And so, and those are the engineers I'm working with, the people that are kind of designing this thing. And so I guess my big goal is just, I really want to gain their trust, and that I'm not going to sign them up for some crazy thing. And for me, it's, you have to trust your engineering team. So, I kind of, again, just working with people as kind of my approach to that.
Yeah, it's so tough in especially in those first like 30 days, first 2 months, when you don't even know. I remember struggling to like access our like demo staging account. Like, I was like, I was like, like, cause there's like, I was like, oh man, like, I don't want to like sound dumb and keep
Yeah.
asking like how to access staging environments and stuff. But it's like,
I do
there's,
remember those
it's,
days.
it's like I had to keep a notepad with all the steps, like, it's
Yeah,
like you
I
need
did
to.
too.
That's just to say that the familiarity with not only like the end users but also the product itself is so important to your confidence and being able to even like step up in conversations and lead something. So I don't blame you for like taking a backseat in the beginning to try and like better understand things before diving in. But at the same time, I think that's like another thing that we deal with as PMs and early PMs, and imposter syndrome, coming in places not feeling like we're capable of jumping right in. And I wonder like how much of that is like substantiated, or if the fact that we were brought into this team in the first place, there probably is an expectation or the understanding that we're capable of jumping in and getting the work done. It's just about the approach, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I definitely jumped in and was like, I think we should do it this way, this way, and this way. I was like, I hope all of that is right. Like, I hope I haven't led you astray. You're going to hate me, but you know what I mean?
And I think that's the right approach. I think like jumping in there and, everybody having the understanding that you're new and might not, have the full picture is expected. But, just being able to jump in there and give your input. And that's how you're going to learn the way that your team works as quickly as possible. That's how you're going to kind of get yourself into the weeds and in the process and learn quickly. It is a little daunting. You don't want to sound stupid. At least
Yeah.
I still have that fear when I speak up. But I feel like just as I put myself out there more, I learn from it, and hopefully they haven't gotten rid of me yet. So I guess I
Yeah.
the most stupid things possible.
So like when you came into like the new role, did you have like did anyone tell you like how things were done previously that kind of guided how you wanted to lead your first big project? Or was it kind of you just, hey, you're gonna do this, go do it however you see fit?
It was kind of like that, the second one. It was kind of like, all right, there's been a ton of stuff going on, and the team, specifically the engineers, because they're the ones that I've been like mainly working with right now, craving structure, and I'm like, okay, I know how to do that. I've done that before. So, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to, and I think it is a lot of like the little things, for me, like with providing structure, when you're working on like a big project versus working on a small project. It's something I always have to remind myself to do, but like to go back to the higher level goals and priorities. Like if everybody understands those, then you can go from there. And I think that's something that, to me, it's like, oh, that sounds super obvious, but it's one of those things that I'm like constantly, like every single day, like, okay, what's the goal? Like what's the, and
Yeah.
Is what I think of what the goal is the same thing as what this person that I'm talking to thinks of what the goal is, whether that person is the engineer or the CEO or, my boss.
Yeah. Is everyone speaking the same language?
Yeah,
much?
Exactly. I like to use analogies a lot, but I have a bad habit of like saying an analogy before it's really fully formed in my head, or you know what I mean?
So you get going and like and try to like finish out piece it together at the end.
Yeah, I had a mentor at Patronics that would always, and I've seen this written before, like this, software development. Oh, here come the buzzwords. I knew it was going to happen. Software development is a team sport, and so I really believe that, and try to live that way. Like everybody has ownership of what you're building is really what I think that gets down to. But when I'm not a big sports person, so when I try to dig into this analogy, I'm just like, oh yeah, like the hockey and the hockey club. No.
The product manager is the quarterback. I feel like that might be a good one you can start with.
Okay. I'll remember that.
So since you kind of came in just providing structure, like you said, and just leading projects the way you see fit and how you've done it in the past. Since Yonas myself since we're trying to formalize some of like the product organization and how like ownership within product and like the different areas of our product at the Parlor platform, it comes with leading our own individual projects and new feature sets and new big redesigns, whatever it may be. So kind of talk to us how you ran those type of major initiatives before and how you're doing it now, just because for me personally, it's like pretty much my first time leading like a super big initiative, and kind of just want to hear like your prod tips, tricks of the trade.
I think the name of the game is alignment, and what we're just talking about, making sure everybody is on the same page and speaking the same language. And I think in my method of doing that is to literally have people looking at the same page. And so I am always sharing my screen. I don't think there's a meeting that I'm running where I'm not sharing my screen, because I want to make sure that we all have kind of a central place to work off of. I think I'm kind of a visual person too. So diagrams. Either you start drawing them and someone can correct it if it's wrong, or I'm constantly, I think I probably am already building up the legacy of myself at this new company for asking for diagrams constantly. But setting that precedent, we'll only make sure that they kind of get added as we innovate into the future, into our documentation and things like that, make it easier for everybody to understand.
So are these diagrams like flows of how the users should interact with the product, or what type of diagrams are you kind of referring to?
Yeah, I think, I'm specifically working on a big data architecture project right now. So a lot of the diagrams are data architecture diagrams, and literally just starting at the highest level, okay, where is the data sitting? Is it in the cloud, or is it in the, physical data center? And how does it get in between those two? And then kind of zoom, continue to zoom in and zoom in as you build more processes around it. So, but at the end of the day, I need to draw stuff to get the.
So that's the technical PM stuff.
Yeah. got a whole data architect out here trying to act like she's not this is not a technical role. But going back to Cam's thing about taking on, taking ownership and what that means for us individually. I think it since this is something relatively new for us, just taking on big parts of the product and kind of owning it, and it really is brought to the forefront how important communication is. And obviously, buzzword, everybody talks about communication as a product manager, but I guess I didn't really understand what that meant until recently, because I would just go on, do things on my own, only to come back, circle around, and realize that I was thinking about it differently, or we just weren't in alignment. So now I'm just I'm just setting up meetings. I just put some time on a calendar with each relevant stakeholder before I get involved or too deep in anything. As long as you do your work in advance and make sure that you have the questions prepared, those meetings will kind of surface up any places you're not aligned, and really help kind of drive you guys on the same direction and save you time, because you're not spending all this time, thinking you're doing something the right way, only to have to run it back. So starting to learn what communication really is. That's I think that's something that I've kind of misunderstood for a while as a PM.
Yeah, it's tough. Super tough. I mean, so I'm leading one project here at Parlor, and within the last 2 days, it's completely switched like that. It's everything's pretty much switched. So I have to kind of redo everything. We're doing another project kickoff today, and it's just I feel like there's a lot of backchanneling that goes on, which is kind of probably one of the results of being remote. People just DM and Slack instead of having a big group discussion, which is probably best for some cases, because sometimes when you have too many voices, things slow down and it takes longer to come to a decision. Whereas if you can kind of back channel and just go to the one person that you think is most relevant to the question you have, it can just kind of speed along the process instead of slowing everything down and having to get the full team together when everybody else has a whole bunch of other stuff to do. And now everyone's focused on one task and everything else is kind of just stopped for like hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this all just like resonates so much with me, and I'm like, you've got me thinking of like things that I'm gonna do today to like, I'm like, okay, like maybe that'll be a good way to facilitate communication and make sure people are on the same page. And I mean, I definitely, yeah, I that is like a work in progress for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if there's like some system to like surface of all like the back channel conversations that happen, just because it's the nature of software development and design and being a product manager. Some way where like you can just surface all of those conversations of like what the decision was, just so somebody can just go to the document. Oh, this was said, this was decided 10 minutes ago. Now I know what I need to do next, as opposed to working on with my previous knowledge of the product and what it was going to do.
Yeah.
It's called the Slack channel.
Right.
But everybody back channels.
I try to automate a lot of things, and I totally do. I have dedicated Slack channels, and I try to like, you know, set the precedent by using them as much as possible myself and being like, this is where we can all communicate about this thing. But you know, the back channels are going to be happening anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is like a constant thing. I struggle sometimes though with, you know, because we have all these awesome tools and to use, but there are some things that I'm like, you know, like you can't like you do still have to have the meeting. And so one of the things I've done is like schedule, you know, for this big project that I just started with the you know the data, the one I mentioned about data architecture, is schedule a weekly meeting. Anybody that is interested in this project can come, and this is the chance for all of us to like be in a room and talk about stuff. And you know, just I only just started it, so we've only had one so far. I can't tell you if it's been going, you know, it's gonna work, but you know, I think it'll be helpful, and part of it is like just sticking to it, and you know, having people come to you, I think.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'll start doing that.
Yeah, and be easy on yourself. It's been like a month and a half you've been there.
Yeah, exactly. And the dilemma is, I feel like the dilemma is like just being in meetings all the time, and like where's the balance?
Yeah, that's been getting out of hand lately.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to have the meeting, but it's like, do you have to have the meeting?
Do either of you ever? Yeah, exactly. It's
you
like,
don't really know until you're there, and it's like 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, really didn't need to have this meeting.
Yeah.
And then you're just done.
Yeah. Well, and that's fine too.
Yeah, that's probably the best case.
Yep.
I'd rather have it and end early, you know?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Touch base, see your face, you know, like I haven't seen you all week. How you doing? And,
yeah. Oh, that was quick. So how's life?
Do you ever look at your calendars and see like all of a sudden it's just like one like opaque block of
Yeah,
that's been a struggle the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's like you want to find time to get heads down, work done, but yeah, I've been having trouble with this. You guys can like, you know, maybe point me in directions where I can, you know, improve, but you know, I end up it gets unhealthy because I end up pushing the like heads down work time into the like afternoon and the evening, and it's kind of been something that I've been struggling with, because then I feel like I'm losing out on like, you know, enjoying some time or actually just being able to debrief. And you know, there's so much happening in the world right now, and it's like I feel like I've just been kind of like locked in meetings during the day and then trying to catch up at night. So I don't know, maybe it's fewer meetings or work more efficiently. I'm curious what you guys are doing to kind of manage the time that you have during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no answer.
I think
the flow.
Yep, going with the flow. I think also being okay with iteration, especially when it's like when you're pushing things out internally that you want like internal feedback on, you know, just being okay with saying, okay, like this is this is what I got done in the time that I said I was going to do it, and I'm just going to send it.
Send it. I like that.
Send it.
I think
It's a buzzword again. Buzz free.
That's great advice though, because I feel like I get obsessed over like the work that I'm putting together, and sometimes I spend more time on things that I need to, and it affects like all the other things that I'm working on. So, and obviously like, you know, just like mental health, just being able to like get things done during the day and not overworking yourself. So I think that's definitely something I'm going to try and do a little bit more. Just get what I can done and whatever time is allotted, send it, and kind of lean on the rest of the team to kind of like work together to make it, you know, the polished finished product.
Right. And I think cause you know, I get, maybe it's like, you know, sending something that I feel like is unfinished, and just going back to like, I think, oh, if someone's gonna, you know, think I like, you know, didn't work hard enough on it, or didn't, you know, but the feedback is so important. And so I think one of the ways, I don't always do this, but like I'm kind of like setting a time limit. Like, okay, if I'm gonna try to, for example, draw this diagram, I'm gonna give myself 30 to 40 minutes on this diagram, and, you know, try to get as much as I can into it, and then send it off to the person, and I think just be clear about like, this is iteration, and this is what I was basing this off of. This is my knowledge that I was basing this off of. So, you know, welcome feedback.
All right. So I know we probably can talk all day, but it's probably a good stopping point. Super appreciative of you hopping on the podcast. Finally got to connect. This was awesome. And like you said, therapeutic. Let's talk openly about everything going on.
Wish you all the best with the rest of your onboarding progress, and hope you guys they send you out to San Francisco sometime soon.
Eventually, when it's safe to do so. I'm looking forward to getting out there. And thank you so much for having me on. This was a ton of fun. Excited I got to use this fancy microphone.
Of course.